You're listening to Condos Unplugged, the online podcast that brings real condo conversations right to your screen. We're talking challenges, successes, and everything in between with the people who know condos best. Each episode, we unpack stories, share solutions, and give you insights that make navigating condo life a little easier. Let's get this conversation started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Condos Unplugged. We're your hosts, Jen Green and Brad Wells. Today's conversation is for anyone who's just picked up the keys to a brand new condo and thought, okay, now what? We're walking through the essential first steps every new condo owner should take, from understanding your responsibilities to knowing your rights and everything in between. And a big thank you to our partner sponsor, SV Law.
Well, so I'm very excited. This is episode 2 of this new podcast series across Ontario. All the CCI chapters are chipping in and joining us, and we're really excited for this. We had a great first episode with some OGs in the business.
That's right. Episode 2, we're like
episode 2 is like super exciting.
I know,
okay?
We're experts.
And we have 2 fantastic guests again.
Absolutely.
So it's really great to have Francesco and Luis Hernandez. So these are, I mean, they both look young, but I'm going to say they're like kind of OG-ish too. Like they've been doing the CCI and this condo law stuff for longer than they look. I'll say that, right? Very well known in certainly in the condo industry. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them, and certainly excited that they're willing to join us today and have a chat through some of these things. So we'd like just to get to know you a little bit and kind of give your little mini bio yourself, and let us know about anything that's kind of going on exciting in your work life or your personal life right now. So who wants to start with that one for a little intro?
I can go ahead. I mean, you said it right. I mean, I feel like I'm so new in this industry, and for some reason, I've been telling people all along that I've only been doing this for 5 years, but then I really took a second to think about the timelines, and I'm like, I have not been doing this for 5 years. It's been almost 8 or 9 years that I've been doing this. It just shows you how quickly time flies in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my name is Francesco. I'm a condo lawyer with Deo Condominium Lawyers. And I've been a condo lawyer for the better part of 8-9 years. And this has been an incredibly rewarding area of law. I think Luis probably feels the same way, but it's an interesting area because, as niche as it may sound, that like we're only representing condominium corporations and owners, it touches on so many different aspects of life, in community building, harassment, OHSA. We have issues of compliance, we have financials, we have auditors involved. So there are so many different things that touch on what we do.
And you didn't even mention litigation.
And that's the whole world that I don't even want to get into right now. It seems niche, but it's incredibly broad. And just personally, I mean, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who is the sweetest thing in the world. She can drive me up the wall sometimes, and she's incredibly verbal. So every day is a negotiation. So I'm not.
I have one of those. She's almost 12 now, and it's everything. I said, you're going to be a lawyer.
Developing,
I know.
What you're saying?
She's going to be a lawyer
in the office, and I'm also a lawyer at home because I'm negotiating how she's going to put on her clothes in the morning.
And I understand, like, trying to find a quiet place in your home can be difficult for a podcast.
Oh yeah, I had to ship her out for a few.
Awesome.
Fun.
Luis, what's going on with your history and professional life right now?
Well, I'm Luis Hernandez. I'm also a condominium lawyer. Like Francesco, I step back sometimes and I think to myself, how long have I been doing this? I can't believe it. I'm on my 9th year going into 10 of practice, but I actually started working in the condo space before I even went to law school. So I was looking back at this, and I started working in a condo law firm as a student with no idea what was going on in 2012. So I'm at about 14 years. I chaired my first meeting, an owner's meeting, when I was still in law school, which is crazy to think about. And it's amazing. I couldn't have said it better myself than Francesco. It's a really fascinating area of law, and you might have just heard my soon-to-be 1-year-old. So that's what's going on in my life. I wasn't able to quite ship him out, but I think they're trying to keep him, in a separate room so that I can do this quietly. But yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing in my life. I'm not at the negotiating phase yet. I've just got a little monster that's, kind of almost walking around, getting into everything. And it's his birthday coming up, so it's his birthday party tomorrow, and I had to worry about occupancy in my condo because I live in a condo, and I had to make sure that I wasn't going to have too many people here. So I actually ended up booking a different space because I didn't want to be that neighbor. But
Well,
yeah,
we know there's no like 55 plus rules anymore, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's you're safe there.
Visitors parking can also be an issue
Yeah,
there.
right. Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
But yeah, no, it's a fascinating area of law. There's so much to deal with, and I think what I love about it is it's very community based. For a law geek like me, like there's so many different areas of law that it touches: employment, human rights. Francesco touched on a bunch of it, but at the end of the day, you're really dealing with communities. You're dealing with people's homes, and I find that really impactful. Right? I thought I was going to be a more traditional corporate lawyer where I'm dealing with businesses and profits and all that, but there's really nothing like a Thursday evening arguing about the flowers. That really gets me going.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's been these AI videos that are circulating online of homeowners meetings, and basically they make up the most ridiculous scenarios about something just like that, and they have a whole dispute about it, but it's completely AI generated.
And
oh,
is it accurate? You think?
It's pretty accurate to the point where I think it's real. And I'm like, no, this can't be real.
well, if you go down some of those YouTube rabbit holes, there's some real like condo and HOA meeting
Oh yeah,
videos, which are pretty entertaining because those are real.
yeah.
Those are-
There are some real ones out there.
We could probably spend a whole episode just the storytelling of crazy or interesting meetings that we've been involved in, right?
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Lewis, before we continue, I see your Harry Potter books back there in your bookshelf. So, yeah, my daughter's
I
a big
see.
fan.
Yeah, well, wanted to call it out. All right. Yes. Well,
You're
I'm in that
unplugged
age
here. This
range.
is unplugged. This is the fun. I know.
Absolutely. It's
I love
one of
it.
my favorite book series, and a lot to learn from Harry Potter for condos as well.
Yeah.
I actually, a few weeks ago, everyone was on me because I hadn't seen a single Harry Potter movie.
Oh my gosh.
So I was guilted into watching all of them back to back to back, and I successfully did so.
Okay.
Successfully, as
You
it was
crushed
a
you crushed
difficult task.
the entire catalog of movies all in like one weekend.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. I,
You can do that,
I'm
and they flow
well in
really
touch
nicely into one another, so it
I'm well
makes
in
sense.
touch with all the characters now. I know who's who.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I love it.
All right. Well, let's get towards our topic of the podcast a little bit, and we can go in many different directions with this, which is kind of cool discussion. But we want to talk through what's it like as a new owner of a condo unit. It's
Sometimes people don't even know that they bought a new condo.
well, that's part of the story. That's
Right.
that's for sure. So Jen is our resident expert condo owner. She's on her own the board on the condo that she lives at. So
Yeah.
how do you want to launch this discussion, Jen?
Well, I mean, just kind of what I said. So people don't even know that they bought a condo. So they get the documents, they get all this paperwork. What do you think that people need to review, and how do you know that you bought a condo? Maybe we'll start there with the documents and things that you get with a condo, and what is important to make sure that you review, so that know what's going on,
What you're buying?
what you're buying.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting topic because one of the most common things I hear managers say is this person doesn't know what they bought. They essentially have this perception that they're the king of their own castle, and they're not really aware that they have restrictions and there's things that they can and cannot do, even within their own unit. So, in terms of things they should review, I mean, the very clear ones are the Condominium Act, the Declaration, the bylaws, and the rules. In the Declaration, you'll find things like maintenance and repair responsibilities, insurance obligations, entry requirements for the condo. In the bylaws are very specific documents. They can only be passed for purposes that are actually set out in the Condo Act. And then the rules are, of course, the sort of document that governs conduct within your condo. So those are the main things. I think all owners that should be the first thing you review. As soon as you get into a condo, you should be looking at those documents. Sometimes they are a little bit difficult to read, especially the lengthy declarations, and there's provisions relating to shared facilities, and it can get extremely complicated. But if I had to tell an owner, what to review when you first moved in, I would say definitely review the rules. Those are pretty easy to get through. The bylaws are important. And when it comes to the declaration, make sure you're looking at maintenance and repair sections. Make sure you're looking at indemnity sections, and make sure you're looking at insurance sections as well. So familiarize yourself with those documents.
So Francesco, I'm going to throw some out, and maybe Louise can take this one as a follow-up. So everything you said is correct, and those of us that all work with condos, we know those things. But I'm going to put my 26-year-old hat on. I got a good job. I'm finally moving out of my parents' basement. Maybe have a significant other that's going to move in with me, and I'm buying my first piece of real estate, which happens to be a condo. That's my entry point, right? And so I do all the things, with the real estate agent, and I find the place and arrange some financing, and then it comes to closing date, and I probably don't even go to the lawyer's office anymore. I probably have a Zoom meeting, right? And some DocuSign stuff. And there's like thousands of pages basically to go through, right? Between the real estate transaction and all the condominium documents and all this other stuff. And I just I want to get this thing closed, and I want to get the key, and I'm going to go, the moving truck's waiting outside, and so it's like the lawyer, if they're good and they know condos, they're probably going to be highlighting a few things for you. We know if they're not condo expert lawyers, they're probably not providing a lot of better insight on that. I think that's the reality. And I'm just clicking through, signing my life away on DocuSign, boom, I get the keys and I'm moving in. Okay, so help me now, because I don't know any of those words that you said before about bylaws and declarations or anything. I'm just moving into my first place. Louis, what do I do with that?
I mean, if you want the millennial response, just take all those documents, dump it into ChatGPT, and let ChatGPT tell you what the answer is.
Yeah.
But really, there's a lot of resources out there. I think Google is your best friend. You can go into finding amazing CCI resources. There's also, here in Ontario, you've got the Condominium Authority of Ontario. There's like an owner's buyer's guide that really simplifies these concepts for everyone. I think those are really important tools. I think you touched on something really important. I really hope that realtors and real estate lawyers are actually pointing things out to their clients, but I think we all on this call know that just doesn't happen as regularly as we would like. So apart from those resources, I would say try to see if you can have a quick one-on-one with your condominium manager, or see if you can, somehow distill the information. A lot of condominiums have new owner packages, and, this is one of the things that we're going to probably get into, but when there's a new owner, a condo is required to provide a new owner information certificate that kind of summarizes and gives information on a more high level for owners to really understand what they've bought into and what they need to abide by. And I'm going to hope that, these are prescribed government forms, so there's always a little bit of iffiness, and, they're trying to be easy, but they end up being a bit more complicated. But there's a lot of resources out there for you to understand and conceptualize what you bought into. That's not, reading the thousands of pages and, putting on that lawyer hat. The ChatGPT part was a bit in jest, but frankly, there's so many AI tools that even that, if you just put in, I just bought a condo, what does that mean? You'll get a far more substantive answer than you might have gotten 5 years ago putting that into Google when we didn't have Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and all these
that
other,
huge package
AIs.
you got from your lawyer, you can dump that in and
Yeah.
I didn't know that summary.
I didn't know that a lot of the property management firms were doing a new owner package. That's awesome. I mean, that's going to help a lot. I
Yeah,
didn't.
and I was going to harp on one thing that Lewis said, which is I honestly think the manager is the greatest resource as a new owner. I mean, most managers have an office on site, and it's a good practice if you're a new owner, you just moved into a building, just knock on the door and say hello. The manager will be able to, tell you a little bit about what the policies are, if there's any, serious restrictions like pets or smoking or anything that you should know about. The manager will be able to just convey that information to you.
In a world where everything moves fast, from high rises reaching for the sky to townhouses lining our streets, condominium communities can't afford financial setbacks. When condo fees go unpaid, one firm rises above the rest. SV Law, Ontario's leading lien force. When every moment matters, they deliver.
Even moving your stuff in and booking an elevator, or I know you need to know who that person is and who that contact is and the rules around that, how long your truck can be there and
Yeah.
using, yeah.
I think it's key to have a really good relationship with your property manager.
Well, I think first you need a good condo manager. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another episode.
Yeah.
For now, we'll assume that they're all good in this conversation.
So I think having a good relationship with your manager is key, and I think the way you do that is, as soon as you move in, knock on the manager's door, have a nice, respectful conversation, see if you can just get any information about the building's policies verbally, and then take it from there. But really establish a good relationship with your manager. I think that's critical.
So, Francesco, obviously representing the CCI Toronto chapter with us today. Lewis is on the board and representing the Windsor chapter. So, in Windsor, if I have a townhouse condo in Bell River,
Yeah, it's a very different experience.
There's no on-site manager for me to go knock on the door of. How do you connect with those people, Lewis?
I think as a first thing, I need to shout out to my chapter. It's Windsor-Essex. I don't want to forget the Essex part of the Windsor-Essex chapter.
Yes,
Very important.
Yeah, of course. But the truth is, that you just use the tools that are at your disposal nowadays, right? We all have email. Oh, actually, I'm going to say all of us, but yesterday I was actually on the phone call with an individual that doesn't have a computer or email, so there are still a few stragglers out there. But you've got email, you've got your phone, pick up the phone. It's not that scary, though I know it feels that way sometimes. And most of the time, either they're going to pick up and you're going to have a lovely conversation, or you're going to leave a voicemail and they'll call you right back. And but those are really your main communication pieces. I live in a townhouse condo myself, so I know I don't have an on-site manager, but my manager's fantastic. If I reach out to him, he's great. He reaches out and contacts me in less than 24 hours, and we're able to have a good chat. I find he's relatively available, and it's that. I think that's really the best way to do it. Introduce yourself, get to know them. You don't have to pester them all the time, but you can absolutely reach out and ask questions, and a good relationship with your manager will make your condo living experience infinitely better.
It's true. I'm in the same kind of community. I have a townhouse. I'm out in the Niagara region, and it's the same. So when people are moving in new, they're then connecting with the manager, and it's not the other way around. You know what I mean? It's us reaching out to them, and the homeowner has to take some of that ownership, right? They have to own that process a little bit as well, and be accountable to getting the information they need to make sure that they're properly functioning in their new home, right? They are responsible for that. I'm also an insurance broker, and this is always a fun one, right? Is what kind of insurance do you get for these units, because they're all different, and depending on what you've bought, a standard condo, a vacant land, a common element. I have had experience actually as a board member with fellow unit owners not knowing what kind of insurance to buy. So in my community here, again, I said we're in a it's common element vacant land style, and someone bought, a few people had standard condo insurance, and so that doesn't cover the roof and the windows and things like that. So but people need that before they move in, right? So that information is in the documents, but that's always a funny one, right? Is that what kind of insurance do you need, and in the loss assessment and deductible chargebacks and all these things that need to be added no matter what kind of condo you own, right? What have you guys had any experience dealing with issues on that?
Yeah, I mean,
all the time.
yeah,
I'm sure.
insurance is a really big topic in condos right now. I think the most important thing is to make sure that your insurer knows what kind of condo you're living in. That's the first step. And sometimes an issue that I've come across is there'll be a standard unit bylaw, which I'm sure all of us know what that is, but I'll explain it. What they do is the standard unit bylaw passes, and then the unit owner doesn't give the schedule to their insurer. So the insurer doesn't actually know what they're covering. So that can be an issue. So if you have a standard unit schedule, make sure you're giving that right to your insurer. And I think the most critical piece is make sure your insurer knows what the condo's insurance deductible is, because if God forbid that ever needs to be charged back, at least you have
Coverage for
peace of
that.
mind of knowing that you're covered. So that's a big one.
Well,
Yeah, just
common theme before you go,
sorry.
Luke, I just want to say in general, and then we always say this every CCI event we're ever at, and seminars, or if talking to our clients, you always want someone that knows what condos are, whether that's your lawyer or your real estate
Yeah.
agent or your insurer. Like you use a specialist, right? I mean, that's going to be your biggest piece. But yeah, sorry, just interject that because that's always something we need to say.
No, absolutely, and this is the beautiful part about this format, right? We're just having this chat. I actually am going to piggyback off what you both said, which is you absolutely need a specialist in that sense. You probably want to go to a condominium specific insurer, right? Like there's quite a few on the market nowadays that can actually, have products that are aimed at condominium owners specifically.
Yeah.
And they're generally better positioned to understand. And, one tip that we usually provide, and I'm sure we all do especially when we're dealing with passing standard unit bylaws or insurance deductible bylaws, is oftentimes it's prudent to get your condo insurance policy from the same condo insurer that your condominium uses. And there's a practical reason for that, because whenever there's a dispute, really it's one pocket giving it to the other. So that
That's
helps.
right.
But also they should have a better familiarity with your condo and the requirements and the governing documents. So it bridges that communication gap where if you go to a different insurer, they may not really have the same information, the history, the governing documents, etc. So from a practical standpoint, having the same insurer is really quite helpful.
It's very true. It's very true. And you know what? It's scary. And I think the statistics, I'm not going to throw out a number because I just know it's high, but a lot of people don't even have insurance on their condo because they think that the corporations will cover them entirely, but that's not the case.
I've heard it's half in Ontario. I don't know if that's still accurate. At one point, I've heard that was the case.
What number did you just say?
50%.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to throw it out there because I don't actually have the stats, but I've heard
I mean, that was probably a while ago, but I don't know how accurate it is now. But it's way higher than it should be. Let's just say that.
Right. But you think, right, the position of a lot of people buying condos, they're either, a starter or an ending, right? Like they have the single detached home kind of in the middle. But when they're retired and they're downsizing, people have bought their home with cash, right? They're not financing it. So you don't need to show a certificate of insurance to any lender, right? And so then they're just like, oh, whatever. But there's a big problem with that, right? So
And what was surprising to me is that I shouldn't say most, but maybe about 50% of the declarations that I review do not make it mandatory for unit owners to actually have insurance. So, I mean, maybe that's a legislative change that the government should look towards changing.
It should be. And you're right. Yeah, it's not.
Technically, some owners do not need to have insurance on their condo, which is crazy to me.
Right.
You said 50%, and my stomach just
I know.
turned. Like
Well,
it's
think about a
terrifying.
deductible chargeback for someone that has no insurance. Like that's out of pocket.
What does an owner do in that case?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. Like if
Finance.
even if I got hit with a $50,000 chargeback, like that would be insane.
Yeah.
And this happens in some cases.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the sad reality is the condo in those cases has no choice but to proceed with collection.
Right.
And that can sometimes involve a lien. So that's the more unfortunate part of the insurance condominium story. But
Yeah, and that's why again, working with a good condominium manager, because it's the communication, the education continually, both to new owners, but even existing owners, right? Of constantly, as things change, as documents, as policies change, or as deductibles change, there's an obligation now, even in our information certificates, to share that information, but also just proactively in newsletters or elevators or by email, or all the rest of the ways that we can communicate well is super crucial. One thing I think I want to hear, kind of some good lawyer stories here, some
Oh,
war
this
stories.
you're taking, I was going to say something. I'm like, I need 2 lawyers here. I want
What's a
dirt.
client like? What's one of these new owners that bought something and didn't know what they bought? That either on the owner side or the corporation side, it was a surprise to them. Like, so, in my mind, it's like one of those cases where someone put a dance studio in their condominium suite. So first of all, it was noise and it was a business. But like, what are one of these things that you've had to work through with either on the owner side or on a client side on something that was totally a
People
surprise?
broke
They
the
moved in.
rules of the rules they didn't know they
right.
were breaking. Yes.
You must have some good ones, right?
So many.
Hot tubs?
too many,
Hot
too
tubs?
many. And I'm having a bit of PTSD. But Louis, you go ahead and start.
Sure. I have a simple one. The first one that comes to mind is I had this lovely couple, kind of those 26-year-olds that you're talking about, moving out of their basement, finally moving in together for the first time. And they had 2 dogs, and they moved into a no dog building.
Oh, God.
Um, but it's a no dog building, and you know basically they were told by their realtor, yeah, it says no dogs, but no one really enforces it. You'll see dogs around. Like anytime I've ever been in this building, like I always see a dog or 2 here. It's not really a big problem. Well, they didn't know that those dogs were only there because they were service animals. There
Right.
was only like 2 in the site, and with them moving in, they were doubling up the amount of dogs, and they had no human rights accommodation basis for them. They were just their dogs. And I love dogs. I have a dog. It's amazing, but it's it was really funny because in this case, it's not that they didn't know; it's that they were told that it existed and that it wasn't going to be a problem. And then when it became a problem, they didn't really have any excuse. They had to unfortunately get rid of their dogs, and that luckily that meant shipping them off to their parents. So of course the parents had to still deal with like the kids somehow, even though they moved out. But I remember having these conversations with them and thinking, but why? Why is this a problem? There's another dog. They're well trained. They're not an issue. But it was simple as you bought into a place that didn't allow it. And
Louis,
there's a reason other people bought into those places, right?
right. They bought into it because they didn't want dogs in the building, right? How did this get to you? Like, did this go through the board to the property manager to you, like through complaints and noise? And how did you end up dealing with that?
Yeah, so this actually came in through a referral from another lawyer actually who represented the condo and said, we've got these people, they need some help, they need some
Yeah.
advice, and
Because they
they
got the
sent it
letter
over to
saying get
me.
rid of your dogs. Is that where it
It-
probably
they,
started from?
yeah, basically. Yeah, they got the letter and, they called back and they had a conversation, said, look, we can't help you. We represent the condo, right? But,
Oh, so you were
here's
representing
Louise.
the couple. You were representing the couple
Yes,
here.
I
Okay.
was representing the couple. And,
Okay.
I don't take on a lot of unit owner files. I mostly do corporate work, but,
Yeah.
every now and then I get a really nice or sympathetic client that, I just want to help. And in this case, like, they weren't malicious. They weren't trying to break the rules intentionally.
Yeah.
And, they wanted to keep their dogs. And I can appreciate that. It's their first home. It's their pets.
Yeah.
They're part of their family. They're little fur babies. But, we had to have the uncomfortable, difficult conversation of this is not a battle you're going to win.
Right.
It's built into the declaration. It is a no pet building.
Yeah.
And everyone else that bought into this, bought into it with that expectation, right? Whether they're afraid of dogs or allergic or any other reason that might be there. Unfortunately, you have to respect that. So it was some disheartening news for new owners, but at the end of the day, they understood, they complied, they did what they needed to do, but it was tough.
And
I,
they're no longer friends with their real estate agent.
yes, I don't believe so.
There are so many. Like you just said, obviously dogs. There's hot tubs. There's barbecues. There's smoking on balconies. Like in our communities, Lewis, like where there's shrubs and things, people planting their own trees and their own. That all needs to be approved, and it's all through the bylaws and the rules and the declaration. So I want more. Give me more hot ones. I want I want spicy.
I have an interesting one that I've come across a few times in my career. I like to call this one the DIYer.
Are you looking to connect with the heart of Canada's condominium community? Do you want to showcase your brand to decision makers, board members, and condo professionals across Ontario?
Condo Unplugged by CCI offers unique sponsorship opportunities that puts your business front and center with a targeted audience that trusts CCI for expert insights and guidance. For more information, visit our website, and we look forward to hearing from you.
And this is the guy who buys a condo, and he thinks he can do everything. He thinks he's a plumber. He thinks he's an electrician. He thinks he's an HVAC specialist. And so this is a true story, by the way. He moved in and gutted his entire unit by himself.
And this is a high-rise condominium type of situation.
This is a high-rise condominium situation. Gutted the entire unit by himself, removed essential plumbing components. At one point, he messed up the cartridge in his shower. So he installed the wrong cartridge, which meant people above him and below him were not getting any hot water for a period of months because they couldn't isolate what the hell was going on. So at one point, this is part of the story, but at one point he decided to change a plumbing fixture in his unit and forgot to shut the water off.
Oh my goodness.
And I think it was the sink. And as soon as he disconnected the faucet, the water just shot straight up at the ceiling, and it was an absolute disaster. But the point is, this person bought their unit, number one, thinking they could do whatever they wanted, but there was a provision in the declaration which said, in order to alter the plumbing or the electrical or the HVAC, you needed the prior written consent of the board, and he didn't do that. Like he started.
That's a pretty standard. Like that's across all condos.
Yeah. Like most declarations have that provision.
Yeah.
And he didn't get board approval, and not only did he not get a board approval, he started his renovations at like 1:00 in the morning. So he was driving his neighbors absolutely insane, and unfortunately, the story didn't end well for him because those provisions exist for a reason, and people who violate them, unfortunately, are going to face enforcement actions by the condo corp. So that was a horror story that went on for the better part of my articling position and even into my first year as a lawyer. So it took a while to resolve because the unit was in such bad shape, and he had done so much that it was almost impossible to bring the unit back to an acceptable state. So wow. That was an unfortunate ending for that unit owner. But it just goes to show, when you buy a condo, you need to know that you can't just do any work that you want to do in your unit, especially if you don't have a licensed trade or contractor doing it.
Yeah. So the board approval is important. Now, what's really too bad about this situation as well is, I mean, anything that involves you guys, lawyers, is charged the condo, costs the condo money. Is that something that you charge back to that unit owner, the fees, or does the condo end up absorbing that?
It really depends. Like, I try to tell my clients, let's not expect to recover every single dollar, because there are situations where charging back legal costs can just simply inflame the matter. And like, the goal is to put matters to a resolution. It's not to escalate.
Right.
So when a client wants to charge back every single cost, I try to set the expectation to say, let's do what's reasonable here. Like, in some cases, the cost should be recovered because it's so clear that the owner has done something that he or she wasn't supposed to do. And I try to only charge back in cases where we've given an owner ample notice. We've told them many times, this isn't permitted. You have to stop. And it's only after them disregarding, a couple of notices plus a few legal letters from our office that we say, okay, enough is enough. The condo is now incurring a significant amount of cost to deal with this conduct, so we're going to end up recovering that, but only if, of course, there's an appropriate provision in the declaration allowing the
Right.
corporation to recover those costs.
To do that. Yeah. So, I mean, someone not following the rules ends up costing their neighbors money.
Yep, yep. And that's a governing principle in
Yeah.
the litigation too, which is, the actions of one unit owner should not be borne by the rest of the sort of innocent community.
Yeah. Well, wearing my condo manager hat with budgets, that's why we always encourage corporations to budget for some legal fees, because there's a cost of doing business, right? You're running a corporation, in
Yeah.
many cases, multi-million-dollar corporations.
Yep.
And there is, just normal legal advice and guidance that you need to take care of matters once in a while, like any business would have to do, which is truly what it is, right? So, again, as a condo manager with these stories, I got a good one. It's happened multiple times, but there's one particular one that I remember where I got this escalation call of, we as a management company committed fraud. We stole money from somebody, and that's the way it came to me. Like it was this heated thing, and I think the police were called, and it was because money came out of this person's account, and they bought a freehold condo, so they don't pay condo fees. They're brand new owners, and of course, during the transaction, that whole legal, new home piece that you do when you're signing all the documents, and you gave a void check, that probably didn't even realize what you were, maybe they thought it was for their mortgage payment or something, but it was the one for the condo fees, for the pre-authorized debit. So of course, on the first of the month, their condo fees came out, and it was a common element condo, so it was a significantly lower amount than what it could be in a standard condo, but
Yeah.
just no awareness that they had to pay condo fees, and the money actually came out of their account already, right? So a lot of education involved there, for sure.
Wow.
Maybe
Yeah.
we can get the CAO to run like a television ad explaining what Congress does.
Right.
Or maybe like a TikTok short.
We'll do some TikToks.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd have to be a funny little scenario, and then like one of those like super long disclaimers at the end of the commercial with all the different things that you need to think about.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of fine print.
Yeah. Yeah. Just before we move off this topic, just because I wanted to get it out there,
Yeah.
if you're ever looking for more salacious or hilarious condo stories, just look south to our neighbors in Florida. If you just look up Florida HOA stories, like homeowners association stories, there's some really hilarious ones out there. Like, I think I saw recently one where one neighbor was upset about another neighbor's Christmas decorations. He had like a large Santa blown up in front of in his front yard, and he got a little bit of a nasty note put on his door about how big the Santa was. So then he went out and he actually had another inflatable made of the note and put it next to the Santa.
Oh my gosh. that reminds me. Remember what was the Florida man thing that you Googled years ago, right? With your birthday, and it told you what a crazy thing that Florida is always the
Like
place,
a real news
right?
story that comes up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I thought about becoming an HOA lawyer in Florida many times. It sounds like a fun job.
I'm sure you get a lot of business down there.
Well,
Oh, those
Now, did
Americans.
you think about it because of the interesting stories or because you wanted the nice weather?
I know.
I wanted the comedy, honestly.
It's fun.
Well, another thing I think around this topic is, there's probably, and I can imagine with your experience and what you know around how condominium corporations work in Ontario, if you, and I don't think you guys do much real estate transaction stuff like with new owners directly, maybe your firms do, but if a new potential owner wanted to invest the time to actually like, okay, I don't want to just like get the documents and kind of know there. I want you to help me understand what I'm buying before I buy it. Like I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to see what the board is doing. I want to see what the status of the reserve fund is.
The health of the condo. It's like the health. Yeah.
Like any what would be like kind of best case scenario? And you probably need a little bit of budget for this if you're going to go this deep, right? To get some professional advice. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my take is this. Obviously, we're going to have to look at things like budgets, reserve funds, financial statements to get an accurate view of the financial health of the corporation. But I got to say, and maybe Luis, you'll agree with me, it's when we're talking about that 29-year-old unit owner that's excited and just moves in and just wants to enjoy their condo. I think I think those documents can be difficult to understand. Even as a lawyer, sometimes when we're going through reserve funds and when we're going through budgets and financial statements, it requires a certain level of financial interpretation that maybe someone just moving into a condo doesn't have. So, I mean, that's where I think the conversations with the manager become really important. Really taking the time, sit down with the reserve fund, notice future funding, the audited financial statements, and just have a look at them. And, just have a conversation with your condo manager because they're the ones who are going to know the finances best. You can have a conversation with them and you can find out, hey, is our corporation in a good place? Is our reserve fund being adequately funded? These are the questions that I think condo owners should be asking. And it's not just a monthly fee that matters because, yeah, the monthly fee will tell you what you're paying month to month, but you really need to know what the status of the reserve fund is because monthly fee will tell you the now, the reserve fund will tell you what's going to happen in 15 years now. So I think those documents are invaluable. They're just a little bit difficult to understand.
I completely agree. And, one of the things that I like to do is if I'm sitting down with someone before they're buying that condo and they want to better understand, I like to start simple and start with the concept of what you're buying. You're buying into a condo, shared ownership, right? That you have, if you're in a high rise, you've got neighbors above, below, across, and on both sides, unless you've got a corner, right, or something like that. But kind of understand conceptually what you're buying into. You're buying into almost like a mini corporation or company or a little bit of a government as well, because you elect your directors, your common expenses are kind of like your taxes and, where are your tax dollars going to, right? Are they going to fix the roof? Are they going to have good cleaners? Are you paying really low taxes and you have nothing, right? But really, I like to sit down with the status certificate and kind of just hit the high points of, like Francesco said, what are the financials? What is your reserve fund? What does that mean? What is that for, right? And once you kind of distill it in a more easy to understand manner, then at the very least, they can understand a little bit more of the framework. And I think that's the biggest sort of hurdle. I don't think we need to get bogged down sometimes with the education of the technical terms. I know we're all, perennial learners here on this call. We're always learning new things about condos, laws, and interpretation. But really, an owner wants to know, what can you do? What can you not do? What do I have to pay? And what is my money going towards, right? And if you can sort of distill it into those simple concepts, you're on your way to having a good condo owner. It's not going to be perfect, and you can encourage them to get more information and education, but at its core, those are the main things that will matter to people, right?
Yeah,
Definitely.
maybe you can help me with this, guys, on a separate call. I've wanted to create a
Is that
business
another
plan.
episode, Brad? We need another
Maybe.
one.
Well, no, it's like I have a business idea. Okay.
Oh,
I think there's a
you're about to
need
tell the whole
for
world
like
that.
new condo owner consulting person that goes that deep. And now you can use a lawyer; they're expensive,
Right.
but I'm not sure how I could monetize this either. But being a condo geek, I love kind of looking into the life of a condo through the documents that are available. And for some friends that were buying condos, I've been able to help them on that. And actually, in two cases, not too long ago, looking at what they're buying and just kind of giving them some advice. One was he was going to buy a condo right by a college, Conestoga College, and it was going to be a rental, an income unit. And sure enough, in the declaration, no short-term leasing, right? And I think there was some single-family provision too that was pretty strong. So that wasn't going to work for him. So he did. So he actually had the offer in, and then backed out, and from the condition. The other one was buying a brand new condo, right? And looking through the documents and the budget, and the biggest thing in that case, I just said, so yeah, this is. I think the developer's great. The plans look awesome. The price is where you want it to be, but the condo fee right now that you see at $400, it's going to be $700 in year 3.
Yep.
And sure
And
enough,
everyone always gets upset at that AGM when they announce, when they do the new budget.
it's just like
It's common for new condos to have that sudden jumps.
Well, because they don't have accurate financials in order to interpret what the budget should be, right? So they lowball it and attract people.
Yeah, I've seen communities go up in flames because they're under the impression they just bought a new condo, common expenses are low, and then 2 years later they get hit with a big increase, and unfortunately that's common with new condos.
Yeah,
Well,
that
let's not
increase is
forget where
like
this
30 to
started.
35%. Yeah, sorry.
That's, oh no, that the 30 to 35% increase just hits you like a ton of bricks. It's brutal. But I just want to go back 2 minutes ago and say, where do I invest?
all right. Well,
Who's in?
it's a
You have
needed
a
service,
partner.
right? I mean, I think there is value in it. It's but again, in that transaction time, whether people don't want to spend the time or the money on doing that research on what they're buying, I think that's the harder sell, right? Is because there's we know, and hopefully some of our audience are learning how important it is to take that time to really look at what you're buying. I think that's the point here.
Absolutely. And I want to ask one question because, again, I love having the lawyers here. So parking. I want to talk about parking. When I bought my very first condo, this was about 10 years ago, and it was a standard condo. And so they had a meeting, the builder had a meeting, and all these people were sitting in the room, and this guy put up his hand, and we're all listening, and he asks a question, I have one spot, but I have 3 cars, so I'll just park my other 2 in visitors. Tell me all the problems that you have with parking and new owner, because they don't get how important it is that you can't park all your vehicles in visitors parking, right? That must be a big.
I'm pretty sure there's a provision in every condo declaration that says
Yeah.
owners or their occupants can't park in visitors. And that's a common misconception. Unfortunately, we've had owners who have had to sell vehicles because, eventually they realize they only have one parking space. So
That's right. You guys must have a lot of problems with that, dealing with parking. Does it ever get escalated really to that? Like, give me a horror story. I'm fascinated.
A parking horror story, yes. Let's hear it.
my
actually-
horror story is a unit owner who had a massive F-150, and he was a construction worker, and he constantly had materials protruding like 6 feet past his truck bed. And this was his living. He essentially had no choice but to put these materials in his truck, and eventually we got into a legal battle with him because we said, like, you're not only is this potentially dangerous, but you're protruding past the boundaries of your parking space. And so we had to enforce, and I'm pretty sure he sold his condo in that case. And that's a perfect example of someone not knowing exactly what they want. You read the parking provisions in the declaration, they're pretty straightforward. It's, keep your car to your own space. You can't have certain materials. One thing that's interesting to me, and I didn't know this, but sometimes when I walk in a condo, you'll see people have their vehicles and they have sort of like a mat underneath their car. That is technically a fire code violation. You're not supposed to have anything on the ground or anything on the wall.
Well, that's to catch the dripping oil, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's people think, oh well, if I put this mat down, it's going to preserve my parking spot. But I'm pretty sure it's a fire code violation, which I just found out recently. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, before Lewis gets his, I related one. A brand new owner to a building, had a big truck. Didn't think to measure if the truck is going to fit in the garage.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? That's terrible.
And it could get in the door, but it couldn't get in the spot that was his exclusive use spot.
Right.
And but again, the agent said, Oh, it's no problem. They'll just switch you with someone else in one of the spots that does fit. That'll be no problem. which of course was a problem.
Right.
And
You
I
own
think
your
the same thing
spot.
happened.
Yeah.
Brad, I have an admission to make.
Okay.
I lived in a condo and I was driving an F-150, and I drove through a area of the parking garage that I was not supposed to drive in, and I almost turned my F-150 into a convertible.
Did it hit or not hit?
It hit.
Oh no.
You don't see that often. Was this an older condo?
Mm, older building, yes, but
Okay.
it was a converted condo,
Right.
and I mean, it was my fault. There was a bright yellow line with some language on the ground saying "Don't drive here," but I drove anyways, thinking I'd be okay, but I damaged the entire roof of the truck. Plus,
Oh my gosh.
the sunroof glass broke and it fell on top of me. So that was fun.
Okay.
Hey, you've heard it here first. It happens to condo lawyers too.
Even you break the rules.
Yeah, mine was not quite as severe as Francesco's. I had to deal with this one in December, but it was about a unit owner, the relatively new unit owner, who really just didn't want to live by the rules. He understood them, he just didn't want to live by them. He had one parking spot, and he had a girlfriend that I assume he still has the girlfriend, but I don't know. But his girlfriend would visit. Basically, she was living there, but they hadn't officially
It's the
moved
are
in.
they
She
living
wasn't
there?
there,
Are
so
they
we
not
talked
living
about
there? How many nights
yeah,
say that you're living
e-
there? Oh, we've dealt with this.
exactly. But this condo had rules about how much overnight parking you could have. Right, that's a common rule.
Fair.
You can only, you don't want a guest to park there 30 nights a month, right? Because at that point, you've basically just co-opted another visitor parking
Yeah.
spot for yourself. But he was always trying to play games, right? He was trying to switch his car. So his car was in the visitor parking spot and her car was in his spot, which is a common thing that happens. And pretty much every declaration has rules that an owner's vehicle or a resident's vehicle cannot park in the visitor parking.
Mhm.
And they had ample street parking, but she couldn't be bothered to walk from the outside into their unit. She had to park indoors. So it was a constant back and forth, but he kept bringing up a term which just did not apply at all, which was accommodation. He thought that we had an obligation to accommodate his situation. And this is the best
Not
part.
human rights accommodation, right? Just like
Not
just
a, not
because
no
I
no. So here's the underlying fact pattern for the accommodation. He worked in the past tense for the developer of the building. Didn't work there anymore and was in an employment dispute with the developer. So there were plenty of other parking spots that he could have purchased, but he refused to do so because doing it would be buying a parking spot from his previous employer. And he felt that that just wasn't appropriate. So he thought the condo had an obligation to accommodate his legal dispute. I can't buy from these many available spots, so I must be able to use the visitor parking.
Was he being was this
And
stubborn? Was he being he didn't want to buy from his previous employer?
yeah, I think so. I didn't
Oh
understand the
goodness.
underlying reasoning. I
Right.
saw them as two entirely separate transactions, but he kept bringing up the term accommodation. You must accommodate me. This is a circumstance. Like, no, you suing your employer is not a disability.
Right.
It's not a ground for protection. So, unfortunately, your girlfriend will either only be able to stay in the visitor parking 7 nights a month, or she can park outside.
Mhm.
We're not saying you guys can't be together. This isn't a Romeo and Juliet situation. Just park outside, get an umbrella if it's raining,
Right.
It's so funny. Like we talk about parking, we talk about smoking, we talk about all of these enforcement problems, and we think about them like they're legal problems, but what they are, they're actually people problems.
They're people problems. That's right.
They're just people with different personalities all coexisting in one space. And our job and the job of a condo owner really is how do I transition? How do I bring myself within the community in a way that doesn't cause friction, and how do I improve the community? So yeah, at the end of the day, it boils down to people.
It's very
Well
very
said.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's such a strange concept too, because you're sharing your home. You're essentially sharing your home, right? And you're in this community and you're being watched. And there's nothing worse than, and I know how it feels to get a letter from, like when the board sends a letter to someone saying that you're not doing something or you've done something wrong. That's an extremely threatening feeling, right? To get that formal letter if it's escalated to that point, where you've done something wrong that you really didn't know that you were doing wrong, but it's just because you didn't read the documents, right? So and you never want anyone to have that feeling. I mean, if they're, a generally kind person, but sometimes we get there. We get to that point, right, with these homeowners.
I was gonna say, it's a very being sent to the principal office type of feeling, right?
Right.
It makes people deeply uncomfortable.
Yes, it is, especially if you've been ratted out by a next door neighbor, right? And you feel childish almost. It's high school or like an elementary school feeling of being told on. It's a very strange, very strange.
Snitches get stitches,
That's right, they do. Or they end up in dishes. I don't know. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. So what maybe we do, Brad, unless you had something else, but I thought maybe we'll do like 3 things that everyone thinks that you should know or get or obtain before moving into a condo, buying a condo. Like 3 things that you just like, you have to have this. Or know this.
Maybe we can piggyback off each other, Louis. The first thing I'm going to say is
agreed.
Insurance. Make sure you have insurance, and make sure that you're giving all of your condo docs and especially the standard unit bylaw and the certificate of insurance to your broker or your insurer directly to make sure that you're covered.
Definitely.
I think that's great. I'm going to call back to our conversation today. Just make sure that if you have pets or if you have multiple vehicles, are pets allowed? How big are they allowed to be? And if you have parked like multiple vehicles, how many parking spots do you have? And, what are the visitor parking policies? Like these are really key items that will impact your day to day. Because even if you have a condo that allows a dog, maybe you have a large German Shepherd, but you're only allowed a Chihuahua. Right?
Small dog.
Allowed a 25-pound dog, right? Which I'm sure we could have a whole other episode on.
We probably will. We probably will. Yes.
I was just going to piggyback onto what Louis said. I mean, just realize what you're bringing into the condo and think in advance whether what you're bringing in is going to cause any issues. Pets, are you bringing in a smoking habit? Are you going into this condo thinking you can do short-term leasing when there's short-term leasing prohibitions? So think about what you're bringing to the condo and really evaluate whether that's going to cause any issues once you're there.
I like something that was said earlier, mentioning to a new owner, connect with the condo manager, right? I think when you said that, it made me think. So we have a lot of good condo managers in Ontario. We have a lot of not so good as well, but we have a lot of really good ones. And I know the really good ones take this to heart because they want to start that relationship with that owner in the best way possible to set them up for success, set the relationship up with the community the best way they can. I know one condo manager that literally schedules like an onboarding almost for new owners.
Wow.
They sit down with them and they go through some of the basics that we've talked about today already and let them know on the ins and outs of how the community works and where to find things and all the rest of that stuff. It's a great way to welcome a new owner. If they put it on themselves to make that reach out and make that connection happen. But the advice to that new owner, make that connection with the condo manager, maybe one of the board members if they're available. Start that relationship off well, right? The worst thing you want is your first interaction with a new owner is they're coming in hot and have some big problem and make a big scene. Well, that's not going to set them up for success in that community over the long term. Maybe it can be resolved and fixed, but I think starting off those relationships well is probably the best advice I would give, right? I think that's a great tip that was suggested earlier.
Definitely, and one that I want to add is the fees, like knowing what your condo fees are, but what they actually cover. Is snow removal included in that? If what type of condo it is, but groundskeeping, is your water included? Is your cable, or all that is an important thing to know so that you can properly prepare for what you also need to pay in addition to it. Like if you're in a vacant land or common element and snow removal is not included, now you need to outsource that or do that yourself, right? So if you're an elderly person moving in thinking that that's going to be included and it's not, those are things that you need to know.
Yeah.
And just one thing I want to add, in addition to creating a positive relationship with your manager, I also find that it's extremely helpful to have that same type of relationship with other staff on the premises. If there's a concierge, being friendly with the security staff, or if there's a superintendent, that can be really helpful if you're having an issue in your unit. So, become a part of the community. I think there's this common misconception that the manager and the board are kind of there as watchdogs and are there to punish the owners, but that's not the case at all. I mean, I've never heard of a board who wakes up in the morning and says, let's issue a special assessment. Let's send a
Who are you gonna get today?
let's send a warning letter. That doesn't happen. These people are volunteers. They don't want increases. They don't want special assessments. They don't want enforcement problems. But unfortunately, Condo Act imposes an obligation on them to make sure that everyone is complying. So the board and the manager are your friends, and I think the more the owners work in sync with the board and manager as opposed to against them and constantly being skeptical, I think that would result in a better community dynamic.
Yeah, and you know what? People love helping people that are kind and appreciate it, right? And if you have that demeanor going into any of those relationships, you're going to get a lot more out of it as well.
And to that point, to Francesco's point, like it's amazing what like a Tim Hortons coffee to the superintendent or the concierge will get you in goodwill. Like that goes a long way, believe it or not.
Works.
It does work.
Just kind of like building on what Jennifer said, though. At the end of the day, this is for most people, it's their home, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want your home to be a battleground or a place where you feel uncomfortable or there's a contentious relationship. I like walking into my condo and being able to talk to my neighbors and my staff and my manager and just have a good relationship, because the last thing that I need is to get to my elevator. And this is before when I lived in the standard condo, but get to my elevator and get a dirty look from someone else or like scowl at the security guard because, they're just doing their jobs and they're trying to keep your community safe and functioning in an orderly fashion. Right? So, that positive demeanor is something that's really important to build that home and that community, because that's where you should feel comfortable, right? And safe.
Yeah. Agreed.
Very true. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of CCI Condos Unplugged. Thank you guys, Francesco and Louis. Your insights, guidance, and real world examples were very, very valuable, especially for anyone who's just stepped into their condo ownership and trying to make sense of what comes next. So thank you very, very much. And
thank you to our partner sponsor, SV Law, but also I think we're on a podcast, guys. We have to say, please like and subscribe and comment. It's going to help this platform grow.
That's right.
And hopefully help this news and these information get to more condo owners around the province. That's kind of the whole goal of this podcast. So please do those things for us, and we appreciate you tuning in today.
Definitely. That's a wrap for this episode of Condo Unplugged by CCI. We hope that you found it informative, insightful, maybe even a little bit unplugged.
If you enjoyed the show, we have one request. Please subscribe, like, and share it with the condo community so we can get these conversations around to more people. Got any questions, ideas, or a topic you'd like us to tackle? Please visit our website and let us know what you want to hear.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected.
Stay informed and always
Keep it condo.